Hi, everybody. So glad that you're able to tune in today. My name is Kambua, and I'm so happy to be able to bring you conversations that are very, very close, near and dear to my heart. This particular conversation is courtesy of Better for Kenya. We are calling it Sauti ya Mama. And basically what this conversation is about is healthy babies make healthy mothers, make healthy families, a healthy community. And keeping in line with the International Women's Day theme of accelerating progress, we are accelerating progress by saving lives. As you well know, the maternal health situation in Kenya has still been in the woods. We are still in a really bad place when it comes to maternal health. The maternal mortality, infant mortality is still quite high. There are professionals on this panel here today, and they will weigh in with numbers and all of that good stuff. There's also journalists, and there's people who are weighing in on a personal level. And I know we're going to have a wholesome conversation. So first of all, let me just say hi, everybody, and karibu.
Hello.
Thank you. Let's start with you. Tell us who you are.
Wow. Thank you so much for this opportunity, Kambua. We called it Sauti ya Mama,
yes,
but it's also Sauti ya Baba. I'm that Sauti of the Mzee. My name is Jackson Kamau, real name, but everyone calls me Soxy. I am a broadcaster, a media personality. I'm a father of two beautiful children, and I'm a husband. And passionate about causing positive change in my society.
Right.
Yes.
And why is this conversation on maternal health important to you?
I think it's very important because I have lived through it. My wife had issues when we met, when we got married. My wife has had issues over the years. She has a condition called polycystic ovarian syndrome, that's PCOS, or some call it PCOS.
Yes.
And I have seen how much she struggled over the years. It got to a time when the doctor told us they have done their best for us to conceive.
Yeah.
And at that point is when God came through. But I've seen the pain that she's gone through, even after conception and just before delivery, because now pregnancy was high risk. So we needed to do a lot of doctor visits. We needed to check on her diet. We needed to make sure that she's not stressed. Yeah. So at that point, I'll do anything. If she wants to eat cake, shika cake. Yes, but she also had blood pressure issues. It was very high. So she didn't really get to term. They had to do induce her for CS. And it's been a journey. Yeah. It's been a journey, quite a journey. Because now even after delivery, just to support her so that she does not get postpartum depression. Yeah. So I am here just to support the women and to encourage the men to support their women. Yeah. Because, as you said, a healthy mother, healthy baby, healthy society, healthy husband, and healthy father.
Yes. And we're so glad that you're able to weigh in as a gentleman, because this is not just a conversation for women. Yes. And the men help make the women mothers. So your voice is very important as well.
And the thing is, we may not understand really 100% what the women or our partners go through, but just supporting and doing the best that you can. We may not adequately feel how you feel, but just going out there and making sure that she knows that you are behind her.
Yeah. Absolutely. Just out of curiosity, did you know about your wife's condition before you got married, or is this something that happened in the course of your marriage?
Yes, I did. I knew she had that condition. We had actually talked about it, and we knew that it's the #1 cause of infertility. So I was prepared to live without a child. You see, sounds good, eh? Yeah. Sounds very romantic.
It does.
But to her, how she perceived, because many times I told her that, we can live without children. It's okay, I love you, we can. But you see, for her, she knows that she's a mother. She's a woman, is supposed to bring out offspring, nurture. Yes. So my encouragement used to sound bad on her end. It's like, so you mean that I will not get a child? You mean that I cannot?
You're okay with me not getting a child?
Yes, you're okay. And that was bad. Right. That was bad. So over the years, I've actually learned some things to say, things not to say. How to encourage, how at times just sit and allow her to cry on your shoulder.
Yeah.
without saying anything.
Huh.
Yeah, that's the best you can do.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you, Suksi.
Thank you.
I want to move over to Nekesa. Introduce yourself to us, and also tell us what your why is.
My name is Nekesa Were, and I'm just so grateful to be here with this esteemed panel. I've worked in the technology and innovation space for about 15 years now. Right now, I work with an organization called Medic, and we work in the digital health space. We are the stewards of the Community Health Toolkit.
Yeah.
The Community Health Toolkit is a set of resources that enables people and organizations build and deploy digital health tools which support community health workers as they deliver care in some of the world's hardest to reach communities.
So aside from your work on a more personal level, why the interest in being in this space?
So I've been married 15 years.
Yeah.
And my husband and I have an 8-year-old boy. He actually just went to year 2 today, opening day.
Oh, nice.
But we struggled to get a child.
Yeah.
And actually, before my boy, we suffered a miscarriage. And in that moment, I mean, obviously, it's a difficult moment, and you're not thinking about much else except, what's going on at that time.
Yes.
But soon after, I began to reflect on what I had experienced, what I'm still experiencing.
Yeah.
And understanding that I actually am in a privileged position where I was able to access one of Kenya's biggest hospitals, some of the best facilities. And even though it ended up in a miscarriage, that I was taken care of.
Yes.
And understanding that there's so many women that do not have that opportunity.
Yeah.
Right. And so for me, working in the digital space and having empathy for that situation, I just really wanted to do something that I could do to try and make the situation better.
Yeah. I love that because, the truth is, even as we sit here, we are speaking from a place of privilege, and I love that we can have the conversation. I'm happy that the conversations are happening. But as you're saying, you get to the realization that the fact that you can get up and go to a private hospital that's privilege in itself, Let me cross over to this side. Mashirima, you are no stranger to us. We know, we see you on our screens almost every other day. Yeah. Please introduce yourself and also tell us why this conversation is important to you.
My name is Mashirima Kapombe. I'm a journalist with Citizen TV Kenya with a soft spot for human interest stories, mostly health and climate. Yeah. And this conversation is quite dear to my heart because I have covered stories that left me asking myself a lot of questions about how we run as a country. If we can slash health budgets 3 years in a row and we don't see anything wrong with that, when you meet women who have had miscarriage after miscarriage, and when they tell you how much they needed to fix, say, an incompetent cervix, it's heartbreaking. Yeah. To also experience it from people who are very close to me, who have had issues with pregnancies, difficult pregnancies or miscarriages, and realizing that we are so privileged, that you can afford it. Yeah. You can afford to know beforehand that you have issues with hormones, and you can be on hormonal drugs throughout your pregnancy, and you can spend more than 500 shillings a day throughout your pregnancy just to be able to deliver a healthy child, then this conversation is very dear to me.
Yeah. You've mentioned things, and I think it's also tying into something that Nekesa mentioned when you talk about, the miscarriages. I wonder sometimes even like the woman in the village when she miscarries, she needs a DNC or she needs one of those procedures. What happens, And when I think of because I have had the incompetent cervix, I know what it costs to get a McDonald's stitch. It's not kidogo money, it's not a little money. I could afford it, yes, but I still felt the strain. And I'm like, how many Kenyans afford this? Or I don't know if it's Wendell, and I'm coming to you. I don't know who, we had a story of a woman who'd had repeat miscarriages. And by the time they figured out all she needed was a stitch, she'd lost so many pregnancies. And that's the reality for a lot of Kenyans. But so let me shift to you, Wendo. Please introduce yourself and also tell us why this is important to you.
Thank you so much for having me, Kambua, and this wonderful panel. My name is Wendo Sahar. I'm the founder and executive director of Dandelion Africa. We are a grassroots innovator that works with communities in arid and semi-arid regions, championing for women's health and economy for obvious reasons.
Yes.
Being that the women in rural areas, especially in arid and semi-arid regions, they work so hard. And for me, I want dignified care for those who deserve it the most, and those are women. It doesn't matter whether it's rural or urban, but women in totality. So what's my why?
Yeah.
For many reasons. I think 25 years ago when I had my son in what they said Lower Karen here, in Kibera.
Lower Karen.
Yeah, in Kibra. I had my son in a very small clinic. And I remember people passing as I was having the delivery. And I remember being so sick afterwards and being so ashamed as well because of the lack of dignified care for women. And these are just a few of the examples, including people that I know who have delivered at home, who have whether infected with HIV because of midwives, or midwives who have been infected, children who are born with HIV because of lack of skilled delivery, among others. So there's so many layers to why for 13 years I've been doing this and why I'm very passionate about this conversation, Kambua.
Yeah, I love that you're bringing out the aspect of dignified care. What does that mean to all of, and anyone can jump into this. What does it mean when you hear dignified care for mothers? What does that look like?
I think for me, as a man, as you talk about delivery and the shame it brought after, it's because we grew up knowing that, delivery, kwa mama wanapiganga nduru huko, and you're treated badly by the nurses, So even us going into now delivery, we had those misconceptions, like the nurses, will they take care of us well, how much pain will this be, how much scar will it leave us with? But thank God again, because of how privileged we are. We go to hospitals that have, good delivery rooms, labor wards, labor ward. Like for me, I labored with my wife.
Yeah.
For my first child, we labored because she was induced to deliver earlier, like a month and a half earlier. So she was induced. So I was able to labor with her, but I wasn't ready to go into the delivery room. I told her, up and you're tunachora line. Laboring, we can labor. But ikiingia huko. But see, it was a private room that you labor, would take, walks in the corridors, in the rooms, but I felt it gave me a sense of comfort.
Yeah.
And because I felt it was not watu huko nje, it was just for us here. Because it is, and I tell men, delivering a child is a matter of life and death. It can flip either way.
Correct.
Because the pain that your loved one goes through, at times, starting point, you rub the back, but it gets to a point where she doesn't even want you to touch her. She would undress. Such things I saw and I wondered if it was in a public hospital, how does that work? With a nurse who does not care. At least these nurses felt, at least they cared. Maybe it was our job, but also having a doctor that supports you and a doctor who's on call, because all through our pregnancy, she had many complications, and there are days that we needed to rush to hospital for treatment. But I know we had a doctor who we would call, tell him, this is happening, and he would tell us, just go get checked, do these tests, and we'll go back home feeling, anyway, we are still okay.
Yes.
We are still getting there. So it matters a lot.
Yeah,
Dignified
yeah.
delivery
Yes.
matters a lot.
For sure.
And I think
yeah.
what he's talking about, that one-on-one with a health professional,
Yeah.
is something that is truly a privilege. Not everybody gets to experience that. And when I think about dignified care,
Yeah.
I had my baby 9 years ago. And the thing that you grow up with, and especially when you're pregnant, you understand that when you go to the delivery room, then you stop being a girl and you become a woman.
Yeah.
And I remember one thing that some of my colleagues would say, that when you go in and they start checking you for dilation, I think, my God, childbirth is the most indignified thing in the world.
And intrusive.
Like, exactly.
Very.
And I keep wondering, like, is there any other way to do this? Yeah. Like, is there any other way?
Yeah.
And recently, I was also with someone very close to me who started bleeding at 4 a.m.
Yes.
And we were very far, like an hour away from the hospital. And again, privilege.
Yes.
That you have a vehicle very quickly, you can make a decision, take her to hospital. And when you got there, they were trying to figure out why is she bleeding?
Yeah.
And that intrusion, like, it bothered me. I kept saying, be gentle.
Yeah.
Try to be gentle.
Yeah.
Just be gentle.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this health professional was so, and when a female professional came in, it felt a bit easier. I felt at ease. I was like, at least it's not a man. And no offense to the men in that
the practice.
in the practice. But for any woman, you really don't want to be in that space in that way. And you require so much gentleness.
Yes.
And by the time they figure out, what, we need to go to CS right now.
Yes.
So how many women have access to that?
Yes. Yeah.
That you can easily, very quickly call a medical professional at 4 a.m.
Yes.
And they direct you to a hospital where they've already made calls and their arrangements done.
Yes.
That in case of an emergency CS, then we are going to go in and do that.
Yeah.
Do you have the money ready with you at that point?
Do you have
so
the money?
when you're going through all that, and then it's in public.
Yes.
My goodness.
Yeah.
How does that woman then get out of that?
Yeah.
And then she goes home and she has all this shame, even with our privilege.
Yeah.
You go back home and you think, what?
Yes.
What was that? Do I have to go? But maybe that's why it's 9 years and I don't have another child, because when I think about it, it's,
There's a trauma attached to it. Yeah. Yeah.
and mine was very easy.
Yeah.
Very easy. Like, I went in and within 2 hours I had my baby. My mom always says, wewe ukuza wewe. Wewe hapo.
Ukusikia kitu.
Yeah,
the Hebrew
I was
women.
induced and within an hour,
The baby
I
came.
had popped out the baby.
Wow.
So when I see women who struggle,
Yeah.
and mine was easy, and I still have trauma.
Yes.
And it's
Yes. Yes.
it's one of those conversations
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
it shouldn't end with a conversation. It
Yes.
needs to end with action.
Action. Absolutely.
One of the things that crushed my wife actually was we labored for 14 hours, but still went for CS.
Yes.
Can you imagine?
Yeah. Yeah. That's
She'd
very
only
hard.
dilated 4 centimeters.
Yeah,
And at that
yeah.
point, the doctor was like,
Yeah. They had to make
there's
the
an
call.
issue with either the patient, passenger, or the passage.
Right.
But right now, we don't have time to, because if I give you maybe 3 more hours, maybe the patient will be tired.
Or the baby will be in
Yeah,
distress.
either the patient or the passenger, which is now the baby.
Yeah.
So, but it felt bad that we labored and still went CS.
Yes.
But again, privilege.
Yeah.
That because theater was just there, we'll rush, a few minutes, we get a baby.
Yeah. So, Wendo and Nekesa, because you're working in Baringo, you've done a lot of work in the grassroots areas where this privilege is really non-existent. What does dignified care look like in those places?
Yeah, so for me, dignified care would be a time when moms to be in the rural area can access healthcare as and when they need it.
Yes.
And not be turned away because they don't have money or because they can't get to a healthcare facility in the first place.
Yeah.
Or because even if they can get to a healthcare facility, it doesn't have the kind of equipment and resources that they require. For me, that would be dignified care for them.
Yes, yeah.
I like what Nekesa is saying, accessibility. But apart from accessibility, I think that it's also important to bring in the aspect of skills, the aspect of compassion.
Yeah.
And I think in our sector, especially maternal child health, there's, in places where there's dignified care, sort of, there lacks compassion. Where you have the equipment and you have the people and you have accessibility and you lack compassion, then you still don't have dignified care in the end, and you have all this privilege.
Yes.
Then you have the mama in Mogotio who is laboring and has to travel on a motorbike for 40 kilometers.
Yeah.
While getting there, the baby is just about to pop out. Probably maybe the baby is coming out from legs or arm or something.
Yeah.
The nearest facility is Nakuru PGH. That's another maybe hour via ambulance. If you do not have a theater nearby, you do not have skilled personnel, you do not have the compassion, then dignified care then is not there. So for me, I feel like dignified care is so much more apart from this access,
Yeah.
but how do we even handle people who are in labor, who you're so afraid about your own life, like Soxy was saying, it's a matter of life and death. As you get there, you don't know for sure. None of us ever knows for sure if we will come out of there alive or dead. Whether our children will survive or not. It's a chance. And so the compassion with the healthcare providers, compassion with the community health promoters as they bring you in, with the traditional birth companions. I think for us, dignified is so wide, but at the center is the compassion of the people who handle you from beginning to end.
But I guess when we're talking about compassion of the healthcare professionals, the midwives and whatnot, we also need to look at the kind of environment that they also work in. Because you go to a public hospital, if you go to a private hospital, you probably have a nurse or a midwife who's attending to less women than the one in a public hospital. So she may have compassion at 7 a.m. in the morning.
But by 3 p.m.
She's tired.
She's tired. And how and she's human. Or he is human. How does she then pull in that compassion? That's
who takes care of the caregiver?
Exactly.
Very important. And because a lot of them also are underpaid. Like you're coming to work overworked, underpaid. You know, so the dynamics are so crazy, you know. And I think for me also a conversation that's really close to my heart is when it comes to people living with disability, those mothers, when they go to, whether it's in the rural, urban, private, public hospitals, how are they handled when going to have a baby? You know, I had a conversation with her name is Angela Nguku. She was a nurse for many years. You know, Angela. She's with the White Ribbon Alliance. She was a nurse for many years. But she said in her whole training of being a nurse, they were never trained on how to handle a woman with a disability coming to have a baby. So what happens to those women? How are they? I mean, if people have no idea what to do with you, so they've not factored in that you might need to be handled differently in this way. You know, when you could walk up and down whatever with your wife, what happens to the woman who cannot walk up and down, who is assisting her? You know, so just so many things that we can think about as we talk about this dignified care. And I think at the bottom line, every woman wants to feel, I know it said a lot that mimba si ugonjwa, you know, pregnancy, it's not ugonjwa, which is true. But really, I don't know if it's Soxy said, you're really between life and death. It's just one line between life and death when you're carrying a baby. So yes, it's not sickness, but if we could understand the sanctity of life, then we would also put more attention in how we handle our mothers and how we handle the children. And even after, and we'll have that postpartum conversation. Nekesa, I would like to know how you've been able to merge technology and the need that is there? What are some of the things that you have actually done and seen, been able to track the progress?
So our tool is used primarily by community health workers, community health promoters, so we call them in Kenya. And community health promoters have existed for the longest time, several decades. But previously, they would walk around with books upon books, which they would then use to take records of the people they were meeting, and then take those records to their supervisors and so on and so forth. And you can imagine the things that can go wrong with that. Think about your handwriting, and is the next person going to read it? Think about you're walking with probably nothing to protect you from the elements. So is it going to rain? Were you writing in ink? Will it continue to be legible? Think about, just as has been said, you just get tired because you've been writing all day, and so you have to focus on, what am I writing where, and then I need to offer care to someone in the community. So our tool, the Community Health Toolkit, has digitized and digitalized that process. So digitized means that what happened on paper now happens digitally, through an app that's called the CHT. And digitalizing is basically that we have refined that process. We have improved workflows, right? And so the app is intuitive, right? And so a community health promoter no longer has to worry about my handwriting and so on. It really guides them through the process of offering care, right? And there's several workflows, which means there will be a workflow to support a new mom. There will be a workflow to support a pregnant mother. There will be a workflow to support a young child. And there will be a workflow to support an area that has prevalence of malaria. So there's various workflows that you can have, right? And so what this means for community health promoters is that they can now focus on delivering care, which we hope and we anticipate and we continue to see makes it so they can offer that care longer, and not get too frustrated along the way, right? But at the end of the day, ours is a tool. It's a great tool. It's been adopted by ministries of health in different parts of Africa and Asia. The Ministry of Health in Kenya has adopted it. And they've adopted it to what's now called ICHIS, the Electronic Community Health Information System, right? But what really matters is that the people using it, which is the community health promoters, are well equipped to use it. So one, as medic and our community, we have to make sure that the tool works incredibly well. But then also other stakeholders need to ensure that these community health promoters get paid. And right now they don't get paid a salary, they get paid a stipend, but it's great progress compared to where we were a few years back. And also you have to make sure that they have the equipment that they need to offer that care. So yes, they have the app, but then they also have to walk around with things like your weighing machine. They need to be able to measure your blood pressure. So it really takes a community, it takes a whole ecosystem to ensure that community health promoters can do what we ask them to do.
Right. I love that. I love that they are actually being empowered. And that we've moved from that place. Because, truly, there's so much that can go wrong when you have it, just manually writing everything, as you said. So seeing that shift with technology is really, really encouraging. And I wish it can be adopted everywhere, to just make it, to ensure that we are putting in the right records. Because there's nothing as bad as maybe going to a hospital and you're ready to give birth and people have no idea even what your history is. It's at a time of crisis is when you're being asked, when was, and you have no idea. So I absolutely appreciate what it is you're doing. Mashirima, as we have these conversations, now from the eye of a journalist, how do you think the stories of women can be told differently? Because I sometimes feel like we don't do justice to the women and to the children in the way that we cover the stories. So it could be one woman died, one mother died, and there's almost like there's no sensitivity to it. It's almost like saying 2 cows died in Machakos. We are not putting in the humanity that needs to be put, enough of it into the stories. How do you think we can do better in telling the stories of women and children because in order for people to understand that we still have an issue? Because I think even there are people who will watch this and be like, in Kenya, we are still having maternal health problems in Kenya because they're just completely not aware. So how do we sensitize people but be able to actually tell the stories as they are, but still with the dignity that we're talking about?
Okay, because I have told those stories before, I beg to disagree on the issues of sensitivity. At least for mainstream media, we are very aware. We have rules that we have to follow.
That you govern,
And one thing that we have done over the years is humanize those stories. That it's not just, maternal, the maternal mortality rate has gone down or is going up or whatever. It's actually looking for a woman who has gone through that experience and is able to tell that story. The disadvantage I think a lot of journalists have is making this woman relieve the trauma. And I struggle with that every single time. Because when I started, I talked about this lady that I covered 3 years ago who had about 5 miscarriages, and she was pregnant when we were doing that interview. And when she began telling the story, she just kept breaking down. We actually did it for longer than what we had planned. Because you have to give her space to breathe. You have to give her space to just let it out. You have to turn around and be a comforter. And forget about being a journalist for a minute. And just comfort her and then ask her if she's still comfortable to keep telling that story. Because at the end of the day, one would say, you know what, I'm ready to do this interview and speak for so many women who will not have the opportunity to do so. But in the middle of it, they're unable to finish. So we are very sensitive to that and just listening. And actually that story turned out really well in the end. Because after we did the story, we actually prayed for this lady. And on that day, my camera person was a woman as well. So we all just prayed for her. She was about 4 months pregnant. And then she said she needed 2,500 for pre-surgery costs. And then the hospital said they'll take care of the rest. Just come with the 2,500. So we gave her the money and she went and got it done. And a few months later, they sent me a photo. And they called and they said, we have a baby. And I was so moved. And that's the thing. That's what journalists do. We humanize those stories because it's not just numbers. It's people. And people are the only ones who can tell their stories. Now, the problem comes in when you tell these stories over and over and over and over again. And sometimes you get desensitized because, so tell me something new that I haven't had. So it becomes very difficult to even do it for a very long period. You have to get to a point where you're like, you know what, let me change my beat for a year or so. Let me do climate, let me do agriculture, let me do something else. Because it's depressing. It is, and it has an effect on you as a person. So we try as much as possible to be sensitive, but after that, we have no control over policy.
And I think that desensitization is what I have a problem with. And, even when we think of other conversations, for instance, we've had conversations around FGM, and I feel like it's a conversation that must be had and had and had until, whether we sound like a broken record or not, until something happens. And I feel, for me, that's how I feel about maternal health, is granted that, yes, the stories are very depressing, very, and it does sound like, okay, it's another miscarriage, it's another. But when we look at it on the other side, the story, that one story that you cover is somebody's lifeline. You know what I mean? And just having that awareness then can be the wind beneath your wings every time you're like, this is a hard story, but I'll do it. And I appreciate the fact that you're able to even humanize an interview and say, okay, it's an interview, but she needs to breathe, or she needs this. I think that is so important because people also just tell their stories depending on how safe they feel, And
even how you edit the story.
Yes.
You can't just put this lady on air crying
Yes.
through it all.
Yes.
So you have to be very careful. You're putting yourself in her shoes. That if someone were to tell my story,
Yes.
how would I want it told?
Yeah. How would I want it told? Wendell, you talked about, women who, for instance, have to go very far to get help, to get care. And I know that the work that you're doing with Dandelion, you've put up maternal shelters. I want you to tell us a little bit about the maternal shelters. The other day I was watching a documentary about women in Nepal. And I remember thinking, first of all, I was like, oh my gosh, I thought we were badly off. And seeing women walking that 40 kilometers to get a scan. And I was like, this woman is so heavily pregnant. The terrain is so crazy. And she will walk and walk and walk to get to that place 40 kilometers away and be told, we don't have electricity today. So just go back. And, and a lot of them are now airlifted when there's a crisis and that kind of thing. So tell us in that area that you've been in, tell us first what the maternal shelters look like and how have they helped with that issue of distance for women?
Thank you. For us, accessibility is critical. So Dandelion Africa really had to think about how do we make sure that any woman has access at her convenient location. So if you look at most of the places we work in, say Baringo County, Narok, Kajiado, so even some parts of Nakuru County that border the arid and semi-arid spaces, the distance to any facility would be 10 kilometers, 15, 20, up to 40 kilometers. How do we expect a woman to actually access these services? You're heavily pregnant. How do you even get there? Let's even go back before you become pregnant. You just want a contraceptive because that is actually one of the most critical parts of maternal health.
Yes.
The ability to decide if and when to have a child. So if you have no access to contraceptives in the first place, you just had a baby last year, now you have another baby this year.
And next year
You'll have another baby because you cannot access a depot. You cannot access Implanon or whatever it is that you need. So the first thing that we needed to do was create spaces where women could be able to access these services. So we've tried to be very innovative. So we've used technologies or looked at businesses around the world that have franchises and then duplicated that. So for us, whether we are in Kajiado County, we've built Manyata shelters. And if you look at one shelter, it will look exactly the same in any area you go to. If you're driving along Nakuru Elbagon Road, on the way you will see a Dandelion shelter on the road. If you go inside, you will see one in Muchoro. If you go to Baringo, you'll find one in Marigat. It looks exactly the same. But when you go inside, the dignified care then starts at that point. But the dignified care really started at the point where we thought about accessibility. So a woman can get ANC profiling there. They'll be able to get any type of contraceptive that they want free of charge. Immunization for their baby, cervical cancer screening, breast cancer screening, HIV testing and management, health talks. We have a challenge with teenage pregnancies in these localities. And how do we ensure that there is dignified care and counseling for our young people. Because as we know, if we have at least what we know, 5,000 maternal deaths in this country every year, and those are the ones we know, can you imagine how many more we don't know? So that's how our maternal shelters are. And lastly, we have built health centers as models of what we want women to experience with hot showers in very rural places, using shipping containers near Amboseli National Park, and really thinking outside the box because we know that this country has money. We can see with our own eyes.
We can.
So if yes, we can. So if there is money, then why is it that a woman cannot just get care?
Yeah.
Why isn't there a couch for me to deliver in?
Yeah.
Where isn't there food after I deliver? Where is the hot water?
Yeah.
And why is it that a woman living in rural areas, her life is less dignified than the person or a wife of a member of parliament?
Yeah.
We are all giving birth to children.
Yeah.
And we are the ones who give birth to the people who make these policies.
Yeah.
So what does that say about this country? So that is what our maternal shelters look like.
Yeah. I have more questions to your whys. I also have a why. Why we don't have, a lot of hospitals, because I was, at some point, the mother who went to a hospital, good hospital, had a baby, lost the baby, and ended up in a maternity ward with women who had living babies. And so I could hear their babies, and for me that was such an awakening. Later on, when I processed my experience, in hindsight, I'm grateful that I was discharged. My doctor discharged me and had nurses take care of me at home. Privilege. I wondered, why is there not a special ward for women who've had miscarriages, stillbirths, and that kind of thing, that you have to be subjected to hearing other women's babies crying and that kind of thing? The trauma is, and they're just, it almost feels like small things that someone just needs to say, can we implement this in every hospital? I think I've heard of one or two, one in Gatundu, I don't know which other one someone mentioned, that have a separate ward, but why can't it just be every single hospital? Or I was also the mother who had a preemie, and it meant that you're literally every 3 hours you're pumping milk to the incubator. There are women who are living in Machakos, in Rongai. They would commute every single morning, and they would sort of hang around the hospital because there's no facility for them there's not even a room like this where they can just sit and, be fed through the day or whatever. And I'm like, what are we doing with the money? What are we doing with that money? But okay, I want to, when we're talking about maternal health, many times we talk about, the pre-pregnancy, pregnancy, and then the baby is here, and we're all like, oh, baby is good, and we go see the mother, and mtoto ako aje?
And we take diapers.
And we take diapers, which are good. I don't know how many of us ask the mother, how is she? How is she? Are you eating? How's your mind? Are you resting? What does postnatal care look like? Because we lose a lot of women mentally after having a baby. There are women who get into postpartum depression and never come out of it, or it just breaks them. Even if they come out of it, they're so broken. There are women who die also, maybe just complications physically that come after birth that could have been caught had we paid attention to the mother as well. So what does postpartum care look like?
I think from a man's point of view,
yes.
I think the number one support system for a mother who's just given birth is the husband. Not even the mom who comes to cook for her or the auntie who comes. It's the husband, because he's been there for 9 months. And now there's this bundle of joy that has come. So it's something that you both feel like you own, So it's not someone from outside. But for you to be able to support your wife or your partner after delivery, I think you need also to be very present pre.
Yes.
Yeah, so that you're able to connect in a way that even when she's having those bad times, there are days I came home and I found her crying. And I would ask her what the issue was. There's no issue, just the baby was crying, but the baby's asleep at that point, and she's overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And at that point, I would take up the role of, let me, you go relax, let me just handle the baby.
Yeah.
But there's something important that happened immediately we gave birth. When I was in hospital, one of the mornings, a lactationist came over to support her, just to try and teach her how to, breastfeed, if she's getting milk for the baby. And at that point, there are two instances where when the doctor comes in, I used to leave. during
Why?
when checking dilation. I saw it the first time.
Yeah.
Like, I can't do this again.
When the nurse comes in on the doctor, me, I leave.
Out.
Yeah, you'll give me the report later. I do not want to see that again. Yeah, but also when you see lactation, I would not help. I would never help to nyonyesha this baby. So I felt, it's wacha aonyeshwe tu. Let me just step out. But the lady was like, don't leave.
Yeah.
You just sit there. You're the dad. Sit there. So did a session with her. And after that came back to me and told me, you know what? As a dad, you'll catch up. You'll try to catch up with this baby.
Yeah.
Because already your wife has headway. She has a head start. She's bonded with this baby. The baby knows her voice, all that. So you need to do a lot to catch up and even support her.
Yeah.
In what ways? And she told me, I'll tell you these things, but they will sound unmanly. No, not the manly things to do.
Yeah.
But just do them and you'll see. So one of the things she told me to do is once a day, just undress the kid, put the baby on your chest and just...
Skin to skin.
Skin to skin, just bond with them. Second thing was wash the baby, invest in washing the baby. At that time, allow your wife to do other things, to relax, to take a walk, wash the baby. At that point, you'll be able to bond with them because you're talking to them, Then the third was change diaper. Wanaume poleni, nilichange diaper. Si ati nimekaliwa.
Kwa nini unasema pole?
Nasema tunataka tu wale tu.
Watasema ni sin.
Mini sin. Lakini nilichange diaper and actually, she apologized because ilinisaidia sana. It really actually helped and it allowed me to bond with the baby because when you're changing the diaper, the child is actually looking at your face.
Yes.
Baby miguu anakuangaba, those things.
You're bonding.
You bond.
Yes.
At times you tore the diaper and like my son, he knew once you tore the diaper is when he
released it.
Showers of blessing. Wow, well done. But it allowed me to bond with the baby, but also learn to support her.
Yeah.
Taking the baby away from her and allowing her to do what she needed to do so that she does not feel overwhelmed. She feels like I support her. There's support that the mom can give.
Yeah.
And as much as there's the mom, there's the nanny, there's also a place that she expects me to step up and also support her. And that's why she'll only cry when I come back home. She'll not cry when the nanny is there. She'll only cry when I come back home.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't tell what the issue was.
Okay.
She just feels overwhelmed.
Yes.
It's been tough.
Yeah.
For us, for our first child, it was even tougher because the dad passed on like a month before she delivered.
Okay.
So you see, she's mourning
Yes.
the dad. Alafu now the baby is here. She's never had a baby before. We are back home together. She doesn't know what to do. The baby is crying at times, So just being there for her. And at times, as I said earlier, do not even tell her what to do. At times it's just take the baby and tell her, just take a walk.
Yeah.
Go
Take a
do
nap.
shopping.
Shower.
Go sleep, shower, do something. Take a drive. I'll be with the baby and I'm okay.
Yeah.
You've expressed milk, so after she wakes up, I'll feed her. I knew what to do to try and support her. But I won't say that we can feel what you ladies feel.
Okay.
We can't, but we can
But you
just
can
try.
support.
We can try.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I can't say that I felt, I won't tell you, I know what you feel like.
Okay. But you did your best.
I tried.
So what about the girl, the teen mom, or that single mom who doesn't have that partner? What would the care be like for them?
Actually, let me jump in, because when he started and he said, those with husbands, and I was like, hey, I have to speak for the unmarried ninjas in the house. Because I am that ninja.
Okay.
And when I had my baby, I had an army. My goodness. My grandmother dropped everything in Malindi to come over.
Yeah.
My mother dropped everything in Nyeri to come over.
Yeah.
My sister was in uni at the time, and we all went home. And I had a house girl. And my mom had a houseboy. And then there's my dad, who's very supportive.
Yeah.
And there are days when I would feel like, Kai, isn't it gani? Like, you have a baby, this is not what was in your mind.
Yes.
Okay? You knew you'd be married and then you have a child.
Yes.
DJ Soxy kind of story,
Yes.
Kambua's kind of story.
Yes, yes.
And then you're in this place where,
Yeah, it looks
what,
different.
What is going on? But when you have a good support system, then you have people to help you through it.
Yeah.
Because I would have my grandmother said, I am here to take care of you.
I love that.
So every morning, after I take a shower and sit on salty water,
yes.
she would give me a massage.
Yeah.
Actually, first she would beat me with a hot towel. I don't know.
Like all over your body?
Yes,
Yeah.
with a very hot towel.
Yeah.
And I used to keep complaining, like, "Ay, nyanya, this is too hot." Like,
Yeah.
it's like you'll need this.
Yeah.
You'll need this for your body. And then she would give me a massage, full body massage, every morning and in the evening.
Yeah.
And then after that, I would have time to rest if
Yeah.
I wanted to, because there's all these people
Yes.
to help me.
Yes.
Along the way where both of them left,
Yeah.
my father would wake up in the middle of the night when he hears the baby crying, and he would knock on my bedroom door and say, "Mlete."
Oh, bless.
And he takes him and sleeps with him for 2 or 3 hours.
Yes.
Then about 5 a.m.,
Yeah.
he brings him back and he says, "I need to go to work tomorrow, so it's your turn."
Yeah.
So for me, it's God, privilege.
Yeah.
Privilege. How
a
many
blessing.
people have
That
such
community.
supportive families?
Yeah.
And that's what I keep thinking about, because my sister had her first baby during COVID.
Yes.
And then she's married in Kisumu. So you can imagine my mother, my grandmother, my father, all of us have experienced what I went through.
Yes.
And then being Costarian, there's a way you take care of a woman who's just had a child.
Yes.
So constantly, my mother is thinking, has she gotten a massage? Did she get that hot beating with a towel? Has she, has she eaten this? Has she had this?
Yeah.
Amefungwa leso. And I used to hate that thing, actually. Kufungwa leso. Ati,
Yes.
lazima urudi.
Yeah.
Okay, comes China.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yo, that's painful, man. Don't do that. But it was a constant battle. But again, privilege. My sister is married into a very good family.
Yes.
So her mother-in-law was constantly on call. What do we do?
Wow.
And she's saying, you know what, we don't do this in our culture. We don't know how to do it. Like, I shouldn't see my daughter-in-law without clothes on. But she was willing to learn.
Yes.
And her sisters-in-law were also willing to learn. So they would go, okay, tumefanya hivi ni sawa? Or how hot should the towel be? And that kept me thinking that these are two different scenarios.
Yeah.
But there's privilege.
Yes.
There's support.
There's
It's not even about money.
Yeah.
It's that you have family that supports you through and through.
Yeah.
So every other woman.
Yeah.
Do they get that when they leave hospital?
Yeah.
And that was the time, I think Sauti Soul song, mtoto anakuja na
Sahani yake.
sahani yake, or I don't know if it's sahani yake. And there are moments I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, this is a whole job.
It is.
It's a whole job.
Yeah, yeah.
But when you think of the support you have, you're like, huyu wangu amekuja na sahani several. Yeah, so I guess that's the thing. That postpartum needs to look like that.
Yes,
And I wish
I agree.
every woman
Yeah.
could have what I had.
Yeah. That's oh my goodness, that's a real community. You know, you've reminded me that the first nanny I ever had was Giriama. And I'm so grateful to her. She knew exactly what to do. She had also taken care of a lot of preemie babies. So she knew what to do. And me, I was terrified because I was like, this is the tiniest baby I have ever seen. I could break his leg trying to wash him. She was so good with him. But she also took care of me. She was feeding me. She was making sure I'm fed. She was kandaing me. I lasted 2 days with the less. So I was like, this thing is painful. It's tacky. But she was feeding me and in the same breath telling me, oh, menona. But then I know I'm so grateful that I've also had a village around me anytime I've had children. But I did find myself in a situation when I had my last born, underline.
Final last, extremely last or acting last.
Is it my story? Where I found myself alone because I had traveled and I didn't have the community that I normally would have. And it was the hardest thing I have ever done. I felt like I was going to lose my mind, You have a new CS, you have a new baby, you have a toddler. It was chaotic. And I think for like 2 weeks, I just thought, this will be the end of me. I literally thought I'm going to fall apart. And, my best friend visited and she was like, Kambua, we are taking you with us. And I remember her, just doing that where she would just be like, feed the baby and then give me. And she'd take the baby and, she's like, go sleep, or get out, let's go for a walk. And that for me was, it made such a difference on that journey and on my mind. And a nurse who checked in on me, she would call every day. How are you doing? What are you doing? What is the baby, what is your son doing? Does he have someone take care of him? It meant so much that there was that, somebody checking. Because honestly, we do lose women so easily, even assuming that they have the right support. I can be like, Wendo is fine, We are giving her time instead of realizing that maybe that's the time she needs us to draw closer to her and to see it. Because I think we assume a lot of things are about one another. And I guess I also want to hear your voice on this, especially with this postpartum issue, mental issue. How do you think we can help women to not get lost in that place or to not get stuck in that place where it feels like it's a new life, especially for first-time moms, but I think just for moms generally, because every pregnancy is different. So, how do you think women can be helped? And what are some of the ways that you have seen women getting help, whether it's mental help or whichever, to just help them through that postpartum phase?
Yeah. I think like you were saying before, Kambua, there just needs to be such a deliberate effort to continue to take care of new moms after childbirth.
Yeah.
And we don't see that as much as we'd like to.
Yeah.
And we need to interrogate why. Why even if they... So first of all, new moms need to be educated for the kind of care that they should expect and seek out.
Yes.
Right? And if they're not being educated, then we need to interrogate why. Are there flaws in our regulations, our policies, in the resources that we have available as a country that are making that not possible? The data right now says that at least the new moms that were surveyed, 98% of them, whether rural or urban, had access to skilled care after, giving birth. But then 4 years later, in urban areas, about 74%, I think, had like 4 visits or 4 interactions with that kind of care. And 60-something, I think it's like 62% in rural areas. So why, if we know that care is available, do we, as the years progress, not continue to seek it out? Do we not know that we can keep going back, or is it just difficult, to access? And then it's really scary because 80% or maybe a little less than that now of maternal deaths are actually attributed to, or rather, 8% attributed to childbirth. Right? Yeah. So it was post, right? And then something happened. Maybe it was an infection or something that we don't know. Right? So it's really scary statistics. I know, having worked with the Ministry of Health, that they do some work to try and close that gap. And so using our tool, for example, I was speaking before about workflows. There is a workflow to support new moms. And so the community health promoters will be equipped with information, with questions, with the app to go back to these moms and to go back regularly. Right? But then I think now one of the questions is, but are they truly equipped to offer the kind of support that's required? Right? Are they truly equipped to handle mental health issues? does that process work seamlessly? I know we've tried it because we have it on the app and we have, the workflow for it. But then, like we were saying before in the conversation, it really comes down to the kind of care that you're able to offer.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important that community health promoters are trained not just to use the app, but how to offer the care, even when you're asking those questions, what to look out for. What are they saying verbally, but what are they also saying,
Not saying.
what are they not saying, right? And what are the other reasons why moms who know that they could get access to that care aren't going for it?
Correct.
That in Garissa, I think the stats are much lower at county level. At Garissa, I think it's 31%. We'll keep going back. I think the highest county is 80-something% Nyeri.
Oh.
So what's that discrepancy? Why are people in the same country?
Yes.
Some of us understand that we should go for this care, and others, even if we understand, do not or cannot.
Yeah.
Right. So there's just so much that we need to do as champions for maternal health, but so much that our leaders and our governments need to do. And I think the more that we can keep that conversation top of mind, when you're having conversations about hospitals, when you're having conversations about care of children, newborns and so on. Let's also have conversations about continuing to care for moms.
Absolutely.
And just ensure that they are around to take care of their families.
Yes.
Yeah.
Why do you think women, and I'm now throwing this out to all of us, why do you think women actually, even who know, or rather who have access to help, don't go for it? Why aren't the women reaching out for the help that's available and the resources? Is it that they don't know or they don't want to? What do you think? Because even when we talk about the prenatal care, I get really surprised anytime I do a pregnancy conversation post on my social media. And, because I'm that woman who, when I suspect I have a missed period, I'm going to pee on a stick. As soon as I get that pink line, I'm at the doctor's office the next day. That's me, okay? I'm over the top. And then there's a lot of women who comment and be like, mi hata nilikuwa karibu kuzaa when I went for my first clinic. They're like, honey, what's this big deal that you need to keep going for these scans and blah, blah, blah. Why do you think, why do you think women don't go for that care that's available for them?
I feel like there's not enough health information, adequate health information. We hear a lot of things. So considering sometimes you'll find, even for me, by the time I was having my second child, I'd not heard about contraceptives and I was in a city. Did that mean that I didn't ask? I didn't know.
Yeah.
What is FP? I'm like, hey.
Watu wanaona wakiwa mara jamaa anasema huko mama anakuwa baridi.
This is drizzly too. Yeah, I was a child. I'm like, I don't know. You expect sometimes that the health provider, when you have your first child, is giving you these options.
Right.
Like, do you want to have another child? If not, you can use this method. Yeah. You can use this, and you can even have it now before you leave. But those are not conversations I had until much later. It was also a friend who took me years later. Akaambia, bedovile, ukikaa hivi, you will have. I'm a mother of 5.
Yes.
And contraceptives became such a critical aspect of me just watching how when women have multiple babies and how their economy is affected. So reason for me, I think there's not enough information. And you might think that it's because people live in rural areas, they don't get enough information. I think it's everywhere. People just don't have the information because not everybody is on social. Yeah. In Baringo County, like what Nekesa is saying, when we're using ICHIS, we train the community health promoters on their platform. Even the community health promoter does not believe that they need to go, they can train, but they are not buying into the product sometimes, right? Now, Soxia spoke about his involvement and engagement as a man, right, in this conversation. I feel that we need to engage and be very deliberate about involving and talking to men more about maternal and child from a younger age, because it's become a women's issue. Well, it's our issue as a community. So in our community, for example, you come from hospital with your baby, the men are out there, tumezaa mtoto, but hata anaangalia tu hivi, ati fantastic. Wow.
Wow. They're congratulating themselves. Thank you.
But at the end of the day, he never steps into a kitchen.
Yes.
He's not allowed by culture to hold the baby, to change the baby. You know? Where is now your part ya postpartum support iko wapi? Alafu very soon ataanza kusema hii chakula and the woman is sleeping. Kwanza saa hiyo wewe unanuka maziwa. Ulale huko na watoto wako. And only when you're ready for baby number 2, 6 weeks later, anaguza hivi kusikia kama uliekewa ile kitu. Aulize umetoa wapi ruhusa. Right? So for me, I feel like education needs to start from a young age.
Yes.
And maternal child health education, sex education should start from when kids are in school.
Yes.
So as the men grow into manhood, as the women grow into womanhood, you have a choice. And you really understand that as a man, I have a role to play.
Yes.
Kazi yangu tu siku I'm the donator. Alafu mimi nakaa tu hapo ati ukienda siku ya COVID, mtu angalia hivi mtoto anashinda mtoto ni wangu kweli. Anatambia. From the day after impregnation,
You've never been together.
So I feel like education is so critical from a young age, and it has to be intentional. And as a country, we need to stop burying our head in the sand.
Yes.
Because our children are having sex. We are having a lot of teenage pregnancies. We can't continue saying, Toto, in social media, the world is woke, and we have to be woke too.
Absolutely. How do you, sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to add a bit. I think that conversation needs to start at the period stage.
Yes.
Reason being, when I was growing up, when I was in primary school, companies used to come to give pads to women. But they used to have that conversation kando. So they used to call the women kando and leave the boys for class. So it's never our issue. Growing up, it has never been a conversation that, because hata hao mademo akirudi wanarudi wamezificha ficha. So it looks like it's a bad thing. It's actually not. Growing up, after nimekuwa msondi and I realized, kumbe hii conversation na need ku have kwa sababu akiniambia zimechelewa. Najua kweli. So ni kitu inaniaffect pia mimi. But it's, we grew up knowing that's a conversation for the girls because of how it was treated and how it was hidden from us. So I think it needs to begin from that level in school.
Include the boys.
When you're having a conversation with women, also include the boys. Have a wholesome, give them but have a wholesome conversation where they know this is what's happening to this lady. And even for you, there's a change that's happening in your body that eventually this change and this change, when they meet change, becomes a change. Big change, there'll be another one that will be changing.
So see, at Dandelion, for example, we've been intentionally ensuring it is boys who train on menstrual hygiene. I have 4 sons. One of them is a huge menstrual hygiene champion. And he says, me, I'm here because someone missed their period. Making issues of menstrual hygiene critical to maternal health. Because anajua, by the way, mtu ange miss period, missing kwa hapa. So, sasa, I am privileged, yes, but there are many people who do not want that. And so this is how we can support them. Just to add to what Soxy was saying.
Thank you for adding that. I want us, we're starting to wrap up this conversation now. Wendo, I just wanted to know, because you mentioned it, how do you go around the conversation of family planning with the women in the village who, there's all those stories, baridi itaingia kwa mwili, etc. You have to seek permission, all of that. But where you can see, really, a woman is endangering herself by giving birth every single year, and whatever other complications come with that. How do you help those women who they will not get the permission that they seek? How do you go around that issue?
Thank you for that question. For us, again, I go back to access. Ensuring that women know where to get the supports, number one. Number two, understanding what is it I'm going to get. Number three, how do we ensure that the community as a whole, whether we're talking about churches, mosques, village elders, nyumba kumi, people understand at the community level the importance of spacing. I think for us, it's been a very unique experience the last 13 years, just looking back and the terminologies even that we use with women. Because it's become such a taboo for women. Mpaka tunatumia ni umekewa governor.
Governor.
Uko na password.
Oh, wow.
Like we have to be so creative. Tuko creative, ni ukweli. Usi comment part ya governor, wacha tupatie tu. Yeah. Because we have to be so creative because it is still something that as women, we still don't have autonomy of our own bodies to decide when and how we want to have our children. So for our communities and where we work, we start from talking to the men before we even come to the women. Then the women themselves, some of them are receptive, but you will find women who are just like, hey, me naogopa. I have seen this, I have seen that, but the more you educate, the more we have realized that a lot more women want to space their children. There's very few women who want to have children back to back. Others have dreams and aspirations and they want businesses and they want to go back to school. And without spacing, it becomes very difficult. So we are intentional in providing contraceptives and we do up to 30,000 long-acting contraceptives any given year for free at their convenient location. So you can walk in, get a pregnancy test for free. You're like, we teach you, we tell you this is what is on offer, and you select. But we also have a lot of gender-based violence brought about by that. And so every time as women we are thinking about solutions, we are also thinking about the risk factor. So how do we ensure that there is a response mechanism to gender-based violence brought about by what we are providing for women that should actually, that is just a basic need. So for me, education, and we start this in schools all the way until the mama who has 9 children who's never even had of a contraceptive. And we say it's never too late to start. Start now, and in 3 years, in 2 years, you'll be able to see a big difference.
Wow. I want each of you to give us a parting shot. Tell us why this conversation needs to continue, or rather challenge the people who are watching this conversation, that it doesn't end here once we cut, but that we can continue to have it and continue to actively work towards ensuring that our mothers are healthy and our babies are healthy. What are your thoughts, your final thoughts for now? Soxy, can I start with you?
I love something that one of the organizations that I worked for many years back, the slogan, geared to the times, anchored to the rock. Meaning that we are anchored to the rock, which is Jesus Christ, but geared to the times. Times are changing, so the way you do ministry then. So I want to use it as, when it comes to the conversation of maternal health. Things are changing over time. And we can only get better. We don't have to be those men who never wash children because it's unmanly, never support your wives because it is, something that your dad told you that you should never do. But things are changing. We now have to be part of this conversation for the betterment of our future, of our families, of our partners, because we cannot. It's not their conversation. It's not just a women conversation. It is a man conversation also, because the children that are being brought forth are our children. And so God has blessed us with these young people. So let's support our partners. Let's support our children, even as they grow up. I believe we'll have a better society when we do this. So it's not just their conversation, but even as men, we need to be part of this conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you, Soxy. Mashirima.
Mine is kindness and support. Kindness and support. Women go through so much to bring babies into this world, and they just need that little bit of kindness, that understanding, and that support. Every woman needs an army. That's it.
Nekesa.
Well, the conversation we've been having is really just about the right to life. and everyone has a right to life. So things like miscarriages and children, dying, months in, are really closer than we think. I think majority people are one step removed, two steps removed. So it's close to home, and many times unnecessarily. So let's get more involved. Let's ask louder, bolder questions, more questions of our leaders. Let's ask more questions of the government of the day. And let's just work as an ecosystem, because my technology on its own won't do it. Funders on their own won't do it. Governments on their own won't do it. It really needs for everyone to ultimately decide that, this is a conversation about the right to life, and everyone has a role to play. So play your role.
Yeah. Wendo.
I've always said one death is one death too many. Maternal health is a basic need. It should not be a conversation that we have on the sideline. It should be a conversation we have every day. Because every day, every second, there's a baby being born. And in this country, if, for example, one flight went down with 250 people, imagine 20 of those every year. And that is what's happening in this country today. So it is our collective responsibility to think about the way we breathe air. That is how we should be thinking about saving lives of women and children in this country. So as Nekesa is saying, it is not just a government issue, it is an everybody issue. And the more women and children that we can save, the better this country will be.
Yeah.
Because women are the backbone of this society.
Absolutely.
And that's a fact.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you, Wendo. Thank you, Mashirima. Thank you, Suksi. Thank you, Nekesa. And thank you all for just being with us and listening in. Drop your comments if you have something to add on to what we have said. If you have questions, let's continue to have those conversations, but also in our communities, that as we've said, let this conversation continue to happen, because when the conversations continue, then change becomes, it's going to happen. We're going to get to where we need to get to. And yes, one life lost is too many. So it's not even about the statistics, we can never reduce people to statistics. It's knowing that one baby is too many, one mother is too many. So what can we do to prevent, and what can we do to give the mothers and the children the best care, the dignified care? There's been so much about dignity here on this panel. How can we, as healthcare workers, give dignified care, as family members give dignified care, and not just for taking care of the children, but also taking care of the mothers before pregnancy, after pregnancy, so that it's just a whole journey of looking out for one another and ensuring that we are at optimum health. I hope next time we can even dig into things like Linda Mama, because I don't fully understand where we are at with that. But just being able to analyze a lot of these things that are made, decisions that keep being made about mothers, because for me, my question is, when something is working, why change it? Why take it out? Or if you're changing it, make it better, right? So just there's still so much that we can talk about. But even as we talk, let's actually action. Let's be present for one another. Let's be that community. I think Mashirima said an army. Every mother needs an army. You're that army. So don't look around for somebody else. It is actually you, whether it's your sister, your friend, your colleague. Let's rally around each other when we're going through this journey of maternal health. So we are continuing to accelerate progress by saving lives. This has been Sauti ya Mama. My name is Kambua, and we will continue to catch you up on different conversations. Thank you very much.